Well, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes addressed his supporters today after not speaking at his campaign event last night.
And of course, the Associated Press naming Senator Ron Johnson the winner of Wisconsin's Senate race today.
NBC 15's Tyler Peters joins us now. You were at Barnes' election night event.
But Barnes had more to say to his supporters today, didn't he, Tyler?
Yes, he did. Barnes spoke at the Sherman Phoenix in Milwaukee. That's where he had his first campaign event and where he had his concession speech today. He thanked his supporters for being with him through every step of his campaign and appeared to get emotional at times during his speech.
And I can honestly say that I fought the good fight. Yes. I've run my race. Yeah. And I kept the faith.
Yes, you did.
Barnes' next steps remain unclear. He did not specifically address the topic in his speech today. He will remain the lieutenant governor until January. In studio, I'm Tyler Peters, NBC 15 News.